Joining me now is the author of groundbreaking works, international bestsellers, his latest on democracies and death cults. Douglas Murray, let's start with the murder of Charlie Kirk, one of the brightest and bravest voices of his generation, a genuinely decent man, a father of two, shot dead at the age of 31, at the type of event that had really become synonymous with his name. He understood the importance of robust debate, of maintaining dialogue with your ideological opponents.
When people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When civilizations stop talking, civil war ensues. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group. What we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have reasonable disagreement where violence is not an option.
Douglas, this is a heartbreaking, unimaginable loss.
Yeah, we're speaking just a few hours after the murder of Charlie Kirk. And I suppose, like everyone, my thoughts are with Charlie, but also his wife, his young wife, and his two young children that he leaves behind. It's an extraordinary, appalling act of violence. And I wish I could say that it's completely surprising, but it isn't, because, of course, we've had assassination attempts on President Trump, who Charlie Kirk has been a very vocal supporter and ally of for many years now. And there have been many threats over the years against Charlie himself. What we just heard him saying in that video is something that Charlie said often, and it's completely true. He spent a lot of his energies since he first came onto the scene at the young age of about 18 or so, and founded Turning Point. Since then, he had always made an effort to stress this point that, yes, you need to be able to talk. You need to have differences of opinion out in the public square, and that it is the best way to avoid a descent into political violence. And although he made that point so often, so many of his critics, most of whom I suspect really never listened to anything that Charlie said, demonized him, misrepresented him, and did that classic thing that unfortunately so much of the left does, which is to regard their political opponents not just as wrong, but as evil. And this is something that many of us have pointed out over the years. Most conservatives tend to think that the left is wrong, but not that it is certainly not in its entirety evil. But that favor is not returned the other way around. And so we have people routinely claiming that mainstream conservative voices like Charlie Kirk's are somehow extreme, and that they somehow themselves are causing harm. Think of all the people in recent years who Charlie has talked about, who you and I, Rita, have talked about, who have said that words are violence, and that countering ideas or questioning ideas is literally killing people, and much more. Well, here we see once again the reality of it. Words are not violence. Shooting somebody in the throat is violence. And I really hope that a moment like this, as well as thinking of Charlie and his family, people think if they're on the side that has been demonizing their opponents to such an extent and dehumanizing them, I hope they think themselves about the fruits of their own words.
And Charlie was rare. He had the ability to persuade so many from across the political divide. That's rare these days. It made him enormously influential, particularly amongst young men. And Douglas, it was such a wholesome message at its heart. It was about prioritising family and religion and truth. Yes. And you spoke about the hate he received. It was so unhinged, so ugly, a lot of it from media. And it continued even after he was shot. Let me play you a little of the discussion on MSNBC earlier today.
He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
I'm not going to say what I want to say. What's your response, Douglas, to what you just heard? That was Matthew Dowd on MSNBC earlier.
Well, I mean, the obvious thing is to make a rhetorical point about what Dowd said there, which is, what if somebody had hateful thoughts about him? What if his hateful words that he said just there led to somebody shooting him or a loved one of his or a friend of his in the throat? Would he exercise the same attempt at logical consistency then? I would think not, probably. But yes, that is an absolutely classic example of smearing the only just dead. And what Matthew Dowd said there is completely shameful. And if MSNBC had any shame, they would have said that immediately to him and taken him off the air. What Charlie Kirk argued for throughout his public life, which was effectively throughout his adult life, were very straightforward things that were not controversial until very, very recently. For instance, what this ignoramus Dowd thinks is controversial, if he bothered ever to listen to anything that Charlie Kirk said, and I doubt he did before deciding to smear him before his corpse is cold. What Charlie Kirk said were things like, there are two sexes, there are men and there are women. He said America is a tremendous country and he was enormously proud of it and an extraordinary patriot. That wasn't, neither of these things were controversial until very, very recently. Charlie Kirk argued for biblical values, for Judeo-Christian values. That wasn't controversial until extremely recently. None of what Charlie Kirk argued for was in any way hateful. I wish, as I say, that people like Dowd, MSNBC, and many others realize that the hate has been so disproportionately coming from them. It's them who say that saying that America is a good country is somehow hateful. It's them that says that saying that there are two biological sexes is somehow hateful. No, it isn't. None of that was ever hateful. It was a statement of fact or of opinion. And that used to be allowed in America. And that used to be respected in America. And it's a terrible, terrible demonstration of where America and the West has come to, that the statement of obvious truths and the statement of opinions that millions and millions of people hold fast to should be smeared in this way.